Hello, welcome to the channel where I've got a brand new Aston Martin DB12, which I'm told is terrific. So I've brought along a couple of alternatives to keep it honest. One is the equally new Maserati GranTurismo, and the other is probably our favourite car of this type, the Ferrari Roma. So I'm going to get out of the rain and into them, talk through their interiors, go for a drive and see which is the coolest, the nicest, the best to drive big coupe of the moment.
First up then, the new Aston Martin DB12, replacement for the DB11 and the other DBs before it. It comes with a 671 horsepower version of Mercedes-AMG's twin-turbo 4-litre V8. Aston calls the car the world's first super tourer. Well, one of those sounds like it should have a pretty swanky interior, so let's see.
Okay, so welcome to the DB12 interior, which is really plush, really nicely finished. I don't think Aston's got anything to fear from any other manufacturer, you know, in terms of fit and finish. It's really very pleasant. Steering wheel is big and chunky. The steering wheel panels are attached to the wheel rather than the column. I prefer them attached to the column, but they're so that, you know, regardless of the steering wheel, they're always in the same place. But it's fine. They're big. You know where they are. It's all right. There are lots of buttons. I'm a big fan of this. There's a big row of buttons along here. There's a big section here, including rollers for the volume and the temperature and the fan. Slightly less successful and easy to use, these little touchy-feely things that are kind of Mercedes ones from on the steering wheel, these little touch pads. They don't always respond in the way you want to. And this is bold. Aston Martin has gone basically for its own infotainment system rather than bringing in the Mercedes system like it used to. Mostly it's fine. The graphics are high quality, if a little bit small and a bit fiddly, but the nav, it's weird. One, it gets really warm, right? It's warm to the touch, overly warm to the touch. And two, in our experience so far, the nav kind of lags about a quarter of a mile behind where you are. So it's telling you to take a roundabout that you took like 45, 50 seconds ago, which is just close to being pointless at that point. So the good news is it also mirrors your phone if you want to. But it's a really nice, high quality, high classy feeling interior. Let's see how big these +2 seats are in the back. Right, a colleague tells me he took 4 people in a DB12 the other day, but his children are quite small, so I think that might be something to do with it. Push the seat forward. Eventually it starts to go forward, does it? Yes, it does. Okay, right, that's my driving position. Back it comes, and back it comes some more. Oh, yeah, it's still going. Right. The squab is very short. There are Isofix child seat mounts, and if you want to take kids, it is fine. And actually, you could, if you push the passenger seat forwards, you could probably take 3 adults in here, plus somebody very small here if you wanted to. I mean, you wouldn't want to go far, but it would get you out of a spot. And yeah, if you've got pretty small munchkins, they fit in here. No worries.
The Maserati GranTurismo is here in its fastest combustion-engined Trofeo form with a 543 horsepower V6. There will be a faster electric variant too, and a prototype review is elsewhere on this channel. It is the longest and perhaps the most easygoing car here, and it's the reason I want to show you the back seats of it and the other two.
Okay, so the GranTurismo interior is very plush. It's a real, you know, there's a lot of rich leather in here. You don't have to have it in bright red. Driving position is good. Steering wheel is round, which I like. Like the Ferrari, it has fixed paddles. And also, as with the Ferrari, there's volume controls and a skip track feature, which you reach for on the back of the steering wheel. So that stuff is really easy. There are big proper buttons on the wheel too. So it's really, you know, functionally, that's very good. Slightly less successful is the fact that the HVAC controls are sort of slightly fiddly and way out of your eye line down here. And also, changing the clock face has exactly the same prominence as turning the lights on and off, which is a bit weird. You might do that once ever and the lights reasonably frequently. But anyway, it's okay. The rest of the functionality is all right, but it's got phone connectivity if you want it. Let's try and jump into the back. I think we'll have more success in here than in the other cars. Right, this is actually the reason why I wanted to show you this test. This is the rear seats of the Maserati. This is a 5 metre long or thereabouts car. It's slightly more difficult to get into than a saloon car or a 3-door hatch, of course, but that is my driving position. I'm 176 centimetres, 5'10". Automatic closing doors if the wind is strong enough. And I've got knee room I sit behind the header rail, so I've got headroom. 4 people can sit, actually genuinely, my feet just about fit under the seats in front, genuinely comfortably in this. And that is not something you can say about the other two. So if that is important to you, you know, if your children are growing more than sort of 10, 11 years old, they could, you know, you can do the school run in this sort of car, and it's absolutely fine. It's actually genuinely not even that claustrophobic because that window is right there. Yeah, it's good. I like it very much.
And so to the Ferrari Roma. It is the entry-level Ferrari, but unlike, say, the California or Portofino before it, it kind of never feels like that. With a 612 horsepower V8, it makes the right Ferrari noises, and it's the lightest and most accelerative car here. Probably the most sporting, but we'll see.
So welcome to the inside of the Ferrari Roma, which I like as an interior environment. Driving position is terrific. It's really sort of cocooning kind of interior. There's a big central rev counter, and you can sort of choose what you want either side of it. Some of the minor controls are a little bit fiddly on this touchscreen. I mean, like even changing the temperature, you know, it's slightly sluggish to respond, and you know, it would be easier if there was just a dial. But come on, you know, it's a sports car. I'm prepared to make allowances. In this case, the passenger can choose some stuff too if they want, like the audio, and they can have a look at the rev counter and things. It's a cool, nice driving environment. I also like the fact that the paddles are fixed to the column, and therefore they are always where you left them, which I like. Anyway, let's have a sit in the back of these +2 seats and see how easy it is to get in there. Right. Now, I have a colleague who said they put somebody in the back the other day, but I don't think they were very big. Now, it's slightly difficult to get over the seatbelt for the front seats. Yeah, there's not a lot of headroom here. There are ISOFIX child seat mounts, so I think that is basically your best bet, is to put things behind it, because if you're an adult, yeah, I mean, look, you know, you could come home from the pub in it, but I wouldn't recommend a transcontinental. I wouldn't recommend any journey at all. It's crushed against my legs, but you know, they are more useful than having nothing or a bench, I think. Anyway, onwards.
And onwards to the dynamic testing. First up, the Aston.
And so then to the Aston Martin DB12 to drive. There's quite a lot of mechanical noise that is allowed to come into the cabin. Aston Martin's aluminium architecture, and the DB12 is an evolution of the DB11s. They do, these kind of sort of big boxy aluminium structures do tend to let more noise through to the cabin than, say, a steel monocoque. So there's a reasonable amount of road noise. I mean, it's wet today, which doesn't help, so if there's a little you wouldn't get that in the dry. That's just as these big tyres throw up some of the water into the wheel arches. There's plenty of engine noise from a very, very powerful 4-litre V8, which drives those rear wheels through ZF conventional 8-speed automatic gearbox. It's good enough. People talk, you know, dual clutch versus conventional autos. The upshifts in this are really quick. The speed of downshifts is, you know, largely irrelevant because the engine's spinning up in those moments anyway. It's really responsive. It's really nice. It makes a great noise when you wind it up. And we'll try and do that a little. But you can tell in these conditions it's struggling a bit for traction. That may be slightly improved in Sport or Sport Plus on the suspension, but they shorten the travel, quicken the body movements, no question. But it does get more brittle as you go. The fact that they sort of reduce the wheel travel can keep the wheels in control, in contact with the road more, which can increase traction in some conditions, but on really bumpy roads it can be worse, blah blah blah. It's a mystery trade-off. Quite enjoying this. The steering is, I don't know what it is. You know what, I'm going to take it out of Sport Plus. It's just a bit much for roads like this. There's something about the steering, and Astons typically have had really nice steering systems, you know, you get a very natural take-up of feel and weight. This feels maybe a bit more remote to me, which is slightly at odds with a ride quality that is very keyed in to the asphalt. You know, it's very well tied down, and yet at the same time, the steering doesn't necessarily feel the same. It's perfectly well accurate, it's perfectly well weighted, but you know, I'm driving along, turning in then, and I'm not getting the steering telling me back that exactly what is going on. And in heavily assisted steering racks, as most are, road feel is not always true road feel in the way that it is in a Caterham or a Lotus Elise, say. So, you know, it's artificial is the wrong word, but you know, you have to engineer back in some of the feel that is filtered out by an assisted rack. And I'm just not sure this does that quite as well as maybe the DB11 or the Vantage before it, or the DB9 or the Vanquish S before them. It's really good, it's really capable. Feels a bit, especially in the firmer suspension modes, like a bit of a muscle car. You know, there's not necessarily huge sophistication, it's quite raw, it's quite... Let's see what it'll do on there. You know, there's lots of noise, there's lots of drama. There's a reasonable sort of firmness and keyed in to the suspension, and the steering is quite relaxed at the same time. It's a curious sort of car. Doesn't necessarily feel the most sophisticated car in the world, but it is engaging and enjoyable. A sort of super touring car is how they say it, because Grand Touring doesn't do it justice. They think it's faster than that. They think it's more dynamic and, I don't know, more engaging maybe than that. It's actually very good. Just along that stretch there, through some of these quicker corners. But it is really nice. It is really nice. It's really enjoyable. Would you want to do France in a day? I think by the time you got onto smooth roads, that keyed in ride comfort would be rather more acceptable. It's still making quite a lot of noise, quite a lot of mechanical noise. Maybe that's all right. Actually, it is all right. It's all right for me. I mean, it's a dramatic looking car outside. Why should it not be a dramatic feeling car on the inside? It's a really characterful car. It's really engaging, really good fun, really enjoyable. Feels a couple of steering tweaks away from being absolutely successful. But let's try the other two and see how they meld this balance, which is not easy to do in a Grand Touring sports car, of comfort versus engagement.
The Aston feels not unlike an AMG GT Coupe, which, given former AMG boss Tobias Moers was Aston's chief exec during part of this car's development, maybe isn't surprising. Can a car with GranTurismo in its name be more Grand Touring?
Okay, so the Maserati GranTurismo 2 Drive. Now, this is a left-hand drive car, and in the UK we have sort of quite heavily crowned roads, and sometimes you get different things going on the left and right-hand side of the road as you get sort of tree roots and hedgerows and stuff as our roads go around fields. So it's not always easy to gauge ride quality in the same way as it would be from the right-hand side, because it is a bit different side to side. But this car is pliant. I am in the standard drive mode at the moment. It's called Comfort, and it is pretty comfortable. You can feel, you know, the body staying flat. There must be, you know, some good stuff going on underneath. The body is very well isolated to sort of, I don't know, you know, comfortable saloon levels of isolation. It's not firm. It doesn't feel keyed in all the time. And for a Grand Tourer, I would say that suits it rather well. Let's move up a bit through the modes. Let's go all the way to Corsa, which is, you know, the really, I mean, it's not a focused variant. It just bonged at me. Why did it bong at me? Active park brake unavailable. Well, okay, I can probably live with that. It's just putting the body down lower. This car is air sprung and the others are not. That's one of the reasons probably why it can feel so isolated. Air sprung cars occasionally give you sort of over expansion joints and things like that. They give you a sort of dong, which is a sproing, which coil sprung cars don't, and they don't necessarily have the same sort of underlying honesty about the ride quality, if that makes sense. But they are very versatile. Oh, that was good. That was nice. It's really nice, this car. It's really good. Even in this Corsa mode, it shortens all of the body movements, shortens and sharpens them, but it doesn't feel less comfortable per se. Everything's just happening a little bit more brittle and a bit quicker. But when you turn, oh, it's nice. It's really nice. I'm just going to knock that back to not comfort. It's quite easy to reach for the gear selector if you want to switch into manual. I like the Aston way of doing it, whereas if you start using the paddles, the old Aston way of doing it, start using the paddles, now you're in manual, then with an extended pull, you're back in drive. This doesn't do that. Once you're in, I don't know why all cars don't do that, because it's such a straightforward, easy thing to do. Is the engine that sonorous? Not really. I mean, it's 6 compared to 8 cylinders on the other two. There's a sort of a quite satisfying rasp to it, but it's not. If you've driven the GranTurismo of old, and the 8-cylinder engine in that, I mean, you know, that was some kind of heavenly noise. This is just a sound, you know, it's all right, but it's not spectacular. But this car, I have a lot of time for, even on a demanding road like this. I think this is really, really good. And bear in mind, it's also got 4-wheel drive, but you wouldn't know it. It feels like a sort of rear-led, pleasingly balanced car. It's just got a bit more traction. Just over a couple of those bumps in this comfort mode. It just wants a little moment to settle. But other than that, this is really good. I really enjoy this car, and it doesn't feel its size as well. You know, 5+ meters long. It's a big, wide, heavy car. Doesn't feel it.
And finally then to the Ferrari Roma. Perhaps, remember, the most sporting and overtly dynamic car of all three.
God, we really like this car. And I think, you know, immediately you know there's a reason why. You know, I remember why we like this car so much. It's got an engaging engine note. I don't think it's quite as gutturally engaging as the Aston's 4-litre V8. You know, it's got a... Let's see, traction is not great in these conditions, but we'll just wind it up a bit, see if you can hear it. But it does sound sophisticated, expensive, rich. You know, it's a good sounding car. And its level of ride absorption over this pretty bumpy road. I love how easy it is to switch between the drive modes and put the dampers in their sort of softer setting. It's got not the isolation of the Maserati, but it does have more isolation and comfort and sort of control as well, actually, than the DB12. You know, it's less kicked off line by stuff, but also body control is really arrow straight. It's not as isolated, it's not as remote and removed as the GranTurismo. So if that level of isolation is important to you, and it may well be, you know, this car does not match that. But of course, instead, it offers very high levels of agility and engagement and involvement. So the steering is quicker than the Aston's. It's the quickest steering here. It's very precise, it's very direct, and that adds to the agile feeling of this car. Which sort of on the switchbacks around Italy where they develop it, you know, it means you only ever need like half a turn here and there. It can make a car feel nervous sometimes on sort of higher speed, bigger radius, more sweepy bends, but it doesn't feel too bad here, even though this is a very bumpy road and these are very dismal conditions. real engagement and involvement and enjoyment to be had from this car. Love these paddles, they are the best in the business. They just, you know, the fact they're always where you left them, I think is really cool. It's got the best dials here because it's got a very big central rev counter, very big gear shift indicator, and also a very big speed indicator. So it's got a great driving environment. It's got a very cocooning, welcoming interior. It's got a level of chassis sophistication that make this, I think, a better car than the Aston. Now, whether that makes it more enjoyable is a different matter again, because it kind of depends what you want from your car. I think this and the Maserati and the Aston all fulfill their briefs very well, and they are all trying to do something slightly different. If this was a city car group test, right, Hyundai i10 versus Kia Picanto versus Volkswagen Up or whatever, you know, they'd all be within £5, 5mm, 5 pieces of equipment of each other. These cars are all designed to do something ever so slightly different. If I was going to drive from here to the south of France right now, I'd go in the Maserati. If I was going to drive this stretch of road all day long, I'd probably be in this. Except for the times when I just wanted a bit more physicality and brutality and hot roddishness, and then I'd go in the Aston. And I also think the Aston is probably the most charismatic of the cars. I think it has the most engaging, it has the most engaging interior, but I think it also has the most engaging sounding engine. And this is a personal preference, your mileage may vary. I also think it's a fantastically good looking car. So if you were going to go out to the theatre or the opera, I mean, arriving in a DB12, how good would you feel? But honestly, which one you choose, which one do you want? So thank you for joining me. There is more over at autocar.co.uk. You can find Autocar at themagazineshop.com, where you can sign up to a subscription, including print or digital, including the entire 129-year Autocar archive. Every mag, all the ones that we have since 1895. There are a couple of little gaps here and there, but they're being filled all the time. Until next time, I'd love it if you'd like and subscribe to the channel, and if you turn on the notification icons, you'll never miss one, etc., etc. Meantime, thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next time.